If you've ever felt haunted by Celtic beauty, you're in the right place. Don't go away, I'll be right back. Gracious Gang, welcome to the Gracious Guest Show. I'm your host, Mike Creevy from thegraciousguest.org. I am attempting to be a gracious guest in this life. This is not my final home, my final destination. I believe fully that I am a creature of God, that God has made everything, that God is the ultimate creator, and that every aspect of our human experience, every aspect of creation is somehow touched by divine providence, that God's fingerprints are everywhere. And that's what I really try to get at with this show, with this ministry. We have all kinds of different topics that come up. And today's, I think, is particularly suited for the kinds of things that we like to explore here, digging into wonder and awe and trying to get at the heart of what it really means to live in this awareness of truth, goodness, and beauty all around us. So if you haven't done so already, please subscribe to the channel. It really helps get the word out there. If you could share this too, if you could like this, hit the little thumbs up down there, that really helps boost this content for people who might benefit from it. And I ask you to do that, and I'm very grateful for you for showing up here today. Today I'm sitting down with my friend Bill Donaghy, who's been on the program a number of times in the past. Yes, Tolkien and Lewis come up in this particular episode. We had a wonderful conversation about everything from music to the terrain and landscape, our own kind of heritage of largely Irish and Scottish background, theology, mysticism, literature, pipes, all kinds of fun things straight ahead. You're going to love this show, so I'm going to get right to it. It's a little lengthy interview. It's really insightful and powerful. We almost lost it because the devil didn't want this conversation to get to you. So somehow the grace of God prevailed, as it always does in the end, and I'm delighted to bring this interview to you with my friend from the Theology of the Body Institute, Mr. Bill Donaghy. Let's check it out. Well, I get to say, Bill Donaghy, welcome back to the Gracious Guest Show. Not many people have that distinct privilege yet.
Wow, it's an honor. Thank you.
Indeed. No, I'm happy to have you. We've talked about a bunch of things before over the years, and with my old radio show right back in the day too, the Ever Ancient Ever New show. And so I was thinking about this. I think I met you at a Theology on Tap. I think it was whatever, like 10 some years ago. You know, at in Harrisburg it would have been. I think we had the Theology on Tap committee there at St. Joseph's Parish, and I was helping them out. So yeah, we've kept in touch over the years, and there's always something fun to kind of talk about. And this is so funny because I want to talk a little bit as we go today, since our topic is kind of beauty, but with this particular kind of Celtic lens, as the viewers can see. Podcast listeners, this is a good reason to subscribe to the YouTube channel, because I have an Irish t-shirt on here, Irish Roots t-shirt. I got, kind of show it to the camera there, which is kind of cool. You know, my transatlantic loyalties. But then Bill, of course, tell us about this sweater a little bit.
Oh yeah, this is the sweater that my grandmother would weave. She put her own patterns in, and she was from her family was Irish. They moved to Scotland. She grew up in Glasgow, and my grandfather was more from Antrim in Ireland. But everybody got these sweaters. Grandma Donaghy was always feverishly knitting. And I have beautiful memories of that, of the smell of mincemeat in the kitchen and tea always on, and Grandma just knitting furiously. And what was beautiful about her soul too, you'd hear her whispering sometimes the names of Jesus and Mary as she was knitting. And she was a character, and that thick Scottish brogue as well was beautiful. So
did she mostly grow up, I guess you said, in Scotland? Because I was going to ask if she had that.
That was more her roots.
Wow. Okay.
So really,
because I've always laughed.
Funny, go ahead.
No, I've always laughed about like the accents and how it's, because some people move and they grow up and it just disappears entirely. Like, is it John Mahoney? I think the dad from Frasier was English and moved to the U.S. when he was like 19 or something, joined the army, became a citizen. He was like a Korean War vet or something, but had he said it even got to the point where it was kind of hard to do an English accent. And I'm like, how? or
It's
like
funny you
Arnold
say that.
Schwarzenegger, who still has that accent.
Well, here's that. It's a funny thing you mentioned that as we start off because my grandmother growing up in Glasgow in Scotland had that thick Scottish brogue her whole life. She moved to the
Yeah,
States when she was probably 20 or and we all kind of drank in that brogue and we can do the Scottish brogue more. My grandfather,
yeah,
who really kind of grew up in Ireland, he joined he was born in America, so he joined the American Army
okay,
later and dropped his accent, so he never had an accent.
yeah,
So it's just a funny thing, like because you look back and now we're like, why'd you do that? I feel robbed. I
yeah.
wanted to hear that.
Oh my gosh. Well, and there is something. I mean, like, and there's so many things we can. I'm sure we'll just. It's kind of anywhere we want to go with this, as far as language, music,
Mm,
geography, folklore.
hmm.
There's literature. There's so many things that you could you know,
Yeah.
for any listeners and viewers, like we have viewers, I'm blessed now in quite a few in France. We have some folks tuning in from South Africa. Like there's people all over the place, and
Wonderful.
you could, of course, do this. I think in a sense with any culture, with any region. Of course, it's part of our human nature that we develop these
Right.
traditions, right? And there's these
Hmm.
unique characteristics about us. But we're of course today, I don't want to say playing favorites, but we're focusing in here because of I think with both of us, as we'll get into it more, our own kind of heritage.
Hmm.
My own heritage is it's I'm a mutt like a lot of Americans,
Sure.
but we haven't done the DNA thing yet. My brother did it, but if you just look at our family tree, funny enough, Creevy, like I'll get asked, Creevy's. You'll find it in Ireland, or the Colin Creevy character in
Hmm.
Harry Potter. Everyone brings that up. Uh, Creevy, well, we're not getting into all the details. Creevy's an alias. It's not my alias. It's my way back, great
Wow.
grandfather. It was a name change, moving to the new world, trying to start over kind of thing. And that was the
Yeah.
Polish side of the family. So we're not
Ah.
actually really related to any Irish Creevies that aren't like since the late 1800s here. Um,
Mm.
but on the Irish side of the family, and the Scottish side, like we have McKenna's, Burns, Nesbitts, like there's Dibbles,
Hmm.
like there's all these different sort of tributaries, But we
Yeah.
have
Right.
it runs very very deep in us, just sort of
Mm.
by our background. Um, but it's also something that one thing about sweaters I'll mention. I should have worn mine. Scotland, it's hard to say. I think we probably have more Irish ancestry than Scottish, but Scotland is particularly near and dear to our hearts for a number of reasons, because I think part of it had to do with my uncle's interest in golf, and he's to this day a
St.
scratch
Andrews.
golfer.
Right.
And so yeah, he
Hmm.
just because of the importance of Scotland, in a particular way. So long story short, somewhere in the mid 70s to the late 70s, he and my dad got this idea where my dad was in between bands. He was a professional musician. My uncle wanted to try out for the Open, and it was at St. Andrews, I think, that year. And they didn't have a whole lot of money, so they got one-way tickets to Scotland in 1978, and
Wow.
they got jobs in Largo, like on the
Mm.
North Sea, basically,
Whoa. Yeah.
Eastern Scotland, and they were they to their and this was verified. We met some of their friends. We went over in 2004, and I got to meet some of these folks. But they were kind of famous because Scotland's. I've always felt like it's this nation of small towns for the most part, right? It gets very
Hmm.
sort of intimate in a lot of ways, and they were kind of famous as these American bartenders, in their 20s, and so they lived there for months, and just the stories that they gained from that trip. And then they
Sure.
had this exchange for a couple years. Like their friends would come over and visit. They'd go back over once in a while, and didn't go for many years. And then we got to go, as I said, in 2004. But I grew up with those stories, and my
Yeah.
grandparents, in the wake of that, had started a Scottish sweater import business. Basically anything. It was sweaters, it was
Hmm.
ties, it was scarves, all this kind of stuff. So to this day, like there's like a cedar chest that my grandmother gave us that you open it up, it just smells like the wool. And so
Hmm.
so that's just, I'm kind of rambling here, but that's just a little
Well,
bit of all
yeah,
these
there's
undercurrents.
and they do stick with you, I think, and that's why this is so beautiful to talk about our heritage. I I think it's really important to note that to all your listeners, wherever they are, that they should. investigate their roots. I mean, we have a very cosmopolitan world now, and it's a smaller world. We can travel so easily, and there's a lot of transients. But there's still this desire to, like, where's my soil? Where did I come from? Where did my grandparents or my great grandparents come from? So dig in, literally, right, into that, because
Yeah.
it kind of defines you. Archbishop Charles Chaput has a great quote about how we all have this kind of soil, like we should be rooted, and the smells and the texture of things. Even in
Yeah.
his assignments as a bishop, he still would, kind of invest himself in the land, whether he says it was like, the South Dakota or Colorado or Philadelphia when he was our bishop. Just
Hmm.
be mindful of these things. So yeah, you said we're not playing favorites, but there is something about the Irish and the
Right.
Scotch in a way that I don't know. You don't have, like St. Patrick's Day is a phenomenon. Like what other, we don't have, like, Uzbekistan Day where the entire,
Right.
we just, or Botswana, whatever. It's like there is
Yeah.
something about it. And I think we're going to unpack why Ireland, Scotland, Great Britain, you could say, what is this mystique that sort of is so attractive that kind of everybody at least once a year wants to go there, be there,
Right.
wear the green. There's something
Yeah.
to that. So that was my experience too. I mean, I've got one brother who's up in Maine now, and he did do the DNA. So that saved
Yeah.
me some money because, hey, he's my brother. So we
He is.
have, I
Yeah.
think, yeah, 76% Irish. So we actually go
Yeah.
back to the High Kings of Ireland in the northwest
Nice.
corner, because we've got family in Donegal, distant family in Donegal, and this little town Redcastle. So it was really
Okay.
cool to pick up on that, the Irish roots. And then from my mother's side, there's some Lithuanian, English, and Irish. But
Okay.
but but the Donaghys, the McFaddens, for whatever reason, that really kind of absorbed much of my own energy and desire and longing. Like, there's something about this Celtic soul that has always haunted me. And
Yeah.
we'll open this up, I'm sure, but I grew up as well, Mike, going to Irish festivals, a Scottish festival here and there. Learned about haggis and mincemeat and the hammer throw and the pipes, and the difference between the Highland pipes and the Ilian Irish bagpipes, and
Yeah.
Clancy Brothers, and different beautiful bands, and Solus and the
Yeah.
Irish Rovers, and the sound of the tin whistle. Just as a young
Hmm.
boy, like that haunting sound that really somehow did
Yeah.
get in my bones and in my blood, and I love it. I think there's something
Yeah.
about the islands, and we'll talk about this, right? Like this
Yeah.
mystery of a little land. I mean, these are small countries, really: Ireland,
Right.
Scotland,
Yeah.
England. But so there's these little islands that are surrounded by the immensity of the ocean, this deep mystery.
Yeah.
And so these, like, windswept, salty air, little villages, just,
Right.
you're on the edge of the great mystery always. How can that not shape your soul, shape
Yeah.
your vision, and move you
Well,
somehow?
that I forget the name of the movie, but it gives me at least one. There might be more, I'm sure, chances to break into a little accent on my own here a little too. But I love. There's a scene.
Go
It's.
for
I
it, lad.
think
Go
it's
for it.
right. I think it's Jim Caviezel. I think was in a movie. I'm pretty sure it was Jim Caviezel where he played. Yeah, I think it was him, or he played Bobby Jones. The famous golfer,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
he goes to, and I think it would have been what, the 1920s, perhaps. I didn't look this up beforehand, but he goes to Scotland for the first time to play, and it's just so different, right, from anything
Mm,
on this side of the Atlantic, and the terrain,
sure.
and just this. And I just and we didn't get to play St. Andrews, but we played some courses nearby when we were over there in 2004, and it's raining, and I
Yeah.
was like, this is a different game, you know, and I love to watch. I mean, people laugh, like they say that it's like statistically proven over and over again that they poll so many people that golf is, agreed upon to be the most boring sport to watch. I'm like, not for me. It's not. I love
Yeah.
it, because
A
it's
lot of
never the
people
same
still watch
twice.
it. Yeah.
But he goes there, and he's going along, and he's just playing terribly, absolutely terribly, and his temper's flaring, and he's walking, and the wind is blowing. The shot, I remember, is really neat. I only ever saw it once, but the wind is almost blowing him down, and he's walking, and he says to his local caddy Angus, he's like, Angus, he's like, I hate this course. And he's like, who made this place? And his caddy just doesn't even miss a beat. He goes, a glacier did 10,000 years ago. It's just, it's like his, just right off,
Yeah,
like who made
that's
this
brilliant.
golf course? God, God's
Yeah,
glacier, and the
yeah,
forces of nature. And this just
that's
very
awesome. I didn't
profoundly.
know that. I don't know that story. I didn't know that film, but there's
Oh
something right
man,
there that is right in the Scottish or Irish wit.
yeah,
Like it,
oh
it's
yeah,
God, and you can either
right,
accept it, or not. Yeah, you can,
yeah,
so accepting like this is our lot. That is such like an Irish Scotch thing,
oh
and you
yeah,
just kind of roll with it.
yeah,
It's Murphy, the whole Murphy's Law thing. Like, oh well,
yeah.
what are you gonna do? Just
Did you
deal with it.
did you ever hear or that middle way sometimes like the unexpected like the I love the joke. I think I heard it from Peter Kraft about the Englishman and the Irishman arguing relentlessly on
Mm.
the train about whether it's pronounced neither or neither, and the Scotsman gets up and goes, it's neither. You know? It's,
Ba-dum-bum.
of course. So yeah. But actually,
Right.
and I want to ask you this. I've been meaning to because I'm glad you brought humor up, and I don't
Sure.
really know what it is. I meditate on this, comes up quite a bit, but I just feel like there's something similar between, and especially Irish humor to me, but it's, Irish humor and like Jewish humor for
Yes.
some reason is very similar to me.
Yes.
And it's, I don't know
It is.
if profound long suffering is part of it, if it's this battle with God,
Hmm.
this Israel type, like I wrestle with God kind of attitude, the chosen people.
That's a great insight.
you know,
I do.
I
I think it
wonder.
is that. I think it is that. I think there is a similarity, and I think it's this transcendent awareness of God and of our own mortality, right? So the Irish, I mean, what is humor but to see through a thing, to see through
Hmm.
a thing, and so a sense of humor is, I think, deeply linked to God and to the transcendent. So it's funny. It's all kind of funny.
Yeah,
It's a sad thing to look at American culture right now, especially in politics, especially one particular party. I won't get too political here, but there's a lack of humor.
yeah,
They're talking
yeah.
about, like, can we do comedy anymore here? The late night hosts on American television are not really funny anymore. And why is
Hmm.
that? There's a loss of the sense of the transcendent. Um,
Yeah.
but when you see through things, uh, you can see kind of the ridiculousness of our own efforts to
Yeah.
stop time or stop death or cheat it, and it's like, it's funny because you
Well,
can't.
and while of course, like deliberately, for example, deliberately becoming intoxicated, of course, is sinful. There's so many
Right.
hilarious jokes about, in some ways, I think it's cautionary in the sense from the standpoint of like, look at how like the absurdity of it. Like, look at how absurd you are when you do X. Is kind of
Yeah.
maybe in the background.
Yes.
But I love the one I can't remember exactly, but I just heard one the other day about the sentimental drunken Irishman who leaves the pub and he's passing the graveyard and he's looking at all the grave sites
Yeah.
of all these people he knows, and he's and then he sees a sign by the road and he's like, oh, who do we have here? Oh, Dublin, Miles Dublin. Oh, from my hometown.
Oh
It's like, oh, he's
God.
145 years old. It's like, okay, but just the absurdity,
Yeah. Complete
of
absurdity.
right,
Well,
but
the
yeah,
drunk,
it's
we could tap into that real quick. One
yeah,
of the sad
no pun
stereotypes,
intended.
every culture can have, we've got our stereotypes, and I always think, listen to things, listen to everything, because
Yeah,
scratch a stereotype and beneath it is some archetypal reality or truth. I mean, that's where the thing
sure.
came from. So, the whole idea of St. Patrick's Day being this drunken fest, which is really sad. St. Patrick's probably
Yeah.
weeping, if you can weep in
Oh
heaven.
yeah, that's
But
all right.
uh, but why? Like, why is that? And I think it goes back to the long suffering. So there's this desire to almost like an escape. There's a line from a Clancy Brothers song. Often the Clancy Brothers, especially Liam Clancy, would weave poetry and
Hmm.
verse in between songs. And I remember growing up
Yeah.
hearing this, where he would say, get drunk, so that you may not be the martyred slaves of time. Get drunk with wine, with virtue, or with poetry as you choose. And
Hmm.
I was always struck by that, like with wine, which is the cheap way out and an abuse of a natural
Right.
good, but
Right.
with virtue. Think of the bold
Yeah.
Irish martyrs, the land of saints and scholars, and then
Yeah.
with poetry. I mean, and like there's an intoxication with not in an alcoholic sense here, but with the natural beauty of these islands. There's an intoxication with
Yes.
poetry, with music, and I that is part of the charm. I think is that in a way we're all looking for. Uh, I don't want to say escape as much as like ecstasy. I think the Irish soul, we know we're made for beauty with a capital B. And so
Yeah.
poetry and music is this thing that pierces the heavens, pulls back the veil. And
Yeah.
that's one of the greatest gifts I celebrate in my Scotch Irish heritage. Even this morning, Mike, I was doing my walk in the cemetery, back to the
Mm-hmm.
tombstones of the death, and it's good Irish weather today in southwestern
Yes.
Pennsylvania. It's 40
Same here.
degrees, rain. There's sweeping rain all over, and I was listening to an Irish band called Solas, Solas. They're no longer together, but man, I love them. Karen Casey's vocals, she's just haunting, and to hear the bodhran and the flutes and the tin whistles of Solus, it's
Mm-hmm.
just so haunting and piercing, and
Yeah.
it just stirs this. It
Yeah.
stirs you. It fires you up. At the same time, it excites and intoxicates with its rhythm and its beat and its pace. But then they'll
Yeah.
go into an air or a melancholic ballad, and then before the
Hmm.
Irish are laughing or crying. Right? There's no
Right.
boredom.
Yeah.
It's either you're laughing or you're crying.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, and it's funny because maybe we can jump into music for a little bit because I mean, you ask people. I think average person on the street. Although sometimes I get nervous about doing that about anything these days. But no, with some of those shows you see where they're like, who was the first president, and they're like, um, Ronald McDonald. It's like okay. So, but no, I think if you ask the average person on the street, an Irish band, like, probably the most famous ever is U2, just in terms of their
Right.
global impact in terms
Right.
of rock. But it's funny, last night and just kind of last minute prep for this, I just popped in, the earbuds and I just started going through Spotify and through my own music archive and just kind of letting things kind of come to the surface. And
Yeah.
I just was jotting so much down. And really it was like this trip down
Mm-hmm.
memory lane of like this wide
Mm-hmm.
variety. And the style of music here is totally across the spectrum. But I was just laughing because I was like, I didn't even realize, until I'm prepping for this, just how like ubiquitous, music and or bands or single performers
Yeah.
from somewhere in Ireland or Scotland have been my whole life. And I'm thinking like I'm
Yes.
growing up with like there's like everything from like Sheena Easton to like the
Mm.
Corrs to Clannad to
Yeah. Yeah.
my dad had some stuff. What was Donovan, and then like
Okay. I
Average
remember the
White,
name.
right? Like Average White Band, which is funny because some people don't know that or that they're Scottish, and I'm just like, no, they are. I don't. It's
Yeah.
like funk, but it's like I don't know what. But so there's this wide range of like if I'm listening to Average White Band or like a Coors pop song, I may not be really
Mm-hmm.
tapping into consciously like this notion of this Celtic haunting beauty, but I feel like
Mm-hmm.
that still informs, like you said, like these folks grew up in that sort of environment and it's there in the
Yeah.
background. But what about,
Mm-hmm.
maybe let's focus on some of the more like the folk stuff or the music you were just talking about. Yeah,
Yeah.
what do you think as far as what makes it so haunting, or what are your
Yeah.
some of your favorites?
It's funny when you invited me to speak on this topic, Mike. I mean, I'm kind of always listening to this music, among other things. But I spent, I was doing some dishes last night as Rebecca was helping with the kids getting them settled for bed, and I was going into the Irish Rovers and listening to the old stuff again, and which is kind of again always on.
Yeah.
But there's something about the music that there's a simplicity, and I'm particularly looking here at maybe Irish music, but
Hmm.
there's a simplicity in it where you've got songs about a fox or the Cregan white hare, or
Right.
some fishing village, or some fisherman who goes off and meets a silkie. We can talk about the whole
Hmm.
story of the silkies off the west coast of Ireland, the seal people. So
Hmm.
and the ocean, and so there's a simplicity of like tapping into nature, natural like creatures, the weather, and I think again in a postmodern, post-Christian, overly digitized world where we're just so stuck in screens. Here we are doing it, but we're using it
Hmm.
well. I hope. Um, People like there's something about that simplicity and joyfulness of just here's a song about a fox. Like here's a song about a rabbit. Here's a song about a
Yeah.
fisherman who met, you know, and I think it charms us. It attracts us and pulls us in. My kids love it. When I play
Yeah.
these songs, my kids
Oh
love it.
yeah.
So I'm getting it
I
in
love like
there.
the sea shanties too are particularly fun
Oh
because of
my
that
gosh, they're great.
you know, like you're about to go into the unknown or you've just come back, like this idea of
Yeah.
going beyond the edge of the world kind of thing, you know.
Yes, they're
Plus,
right there.
I'm watching all the Pirates of the Caribbean movie right now again too for some reason. So
Oh, there you
it's like
go.
that's stuck in
Well,
my
you
head.
know,
But
when you said that, there's a song called Peter Kagan and the Wind about a fisherman off the coast of Ireland. And I named my fourth son, my fourth child, Kagan, because of that song,
hmm
Kagan Matthew.
yeah,
There's a song called
Hmm.
The Shoals of Herring by the Clancy
yeah,
brothers that is so mournful and melancholic, and yet you love it. You love the sadness that it stirs. It gives you a kind of happiness. It's kind of a funny thing.
yeah.
Again, the Irish, like, what is that? Where does that come from? And I'm
That's it.
convinced again, it's the mortality, it's the passing nature of the world,
Yeah.
but that it is beauty, and we long for it.
I cannot listen to the especially the High King's rendition of
Oh,
the Parting Glass without
oh,
just
killer,
I'll just sob. But it's like,
killer
but
song.
it's okay, and I need it. You know, it's like this cathartic kind of, you know. What do you
Hmm.
think about that? I feel like there's this, you know, there's this kind of I don't know where it really comes from. I don't want to pin this on the Germans because I have German ancestry too, but I feel like it
Hmm.
might be more of a Germanic influence just from what I've read as far as that more kind of austere, like men don't cry kind of thing. And I think
Yeah,
it's Irish men do.
yeah. Oh,
Like,
very
you know, it's
frequently.
like, yeah, you know, just like, oh, there's
Yeah.
Joe,
Well,
you
you
know, you
know,
just,
the poachine, the poachine will help. You know, a couple of whiskeys and you're, you know. But I think it's, you know, if I'm convinced again, it goes back to the natural, like this idea of Irish weather. You know, we talk, people go outside and if it's raining, they're like, oh, good Irish weather. So an
hmm
Irishman is in touch with his tears, I think.
yeah.
We can be very emotional. I mean, I literally, Mike, I will cry at a commercial. You know, I will
Oh, yeah.
hear the first notes of a song, and I'm wrecked. You know, and my wife's the
Yeah.
same. My wife is a Byron's, and she's got Irish relatives. We went through Cork and Killarney, and we met the
Okay.
cousins, and it's just there's a vulnerability, I think, to the Irish soul where they
Hmm.
allow themselves to feel. They allow themselves to feel and to reveal, which I think we need
Okay.
that. I can't tell you this how
Yeah.
many times as a teacher when I teach theology of the body or teaching about the faith, I'll so often dip into my own stories and experiences. Right, this is John Paul II's
Yeah.
phenomenology. Right, what have we learned through human experience? And when I emote or allow myself to be vulnerable and say like, this is what I learned from this experience or being in this geographic location and how it wrecked me. I can't tell you, Mike, how many times men come up to me and they're like, "Thank you for like teaching me about what masculinity is." And I'm like, "What?" And they
Hmm.
say, I can't explain it, but like you're a man up there, and you're not like you're weeping, but you're strong. You're showing me a strength through this. Like you're letting yourself. That takes strength to allow yourself to feel and to be vulnerable. And I'm thinking,
Hmm.
wow, well, praise God. I'm just trying to let the spirit move. That's another great gift of the Irish and the Scotch. Just let yourself be moved.
Yeah.
George MacDonald is a great Scotsman. George MacDonald from the 1800s, right? So he was a Scottish pastor for a little bit, but a writer, a
Right.
storyteller. And George MacDonald was radically moved by creation, by everything, by the gospel as it came to him through everything he experienced growing up in Scotland. George
Right.
MacDonald is one of the main influences of C.S. Lewis. He has affected J.R.R. Tolkien. G.K. Chesterton attributes George MacDonald as formative in his life. So, you know, kind of, I'm doing a long answer here, but like allowing ourselves to be moved and wrecked moves and wrecks others,
Right.
right? To allow yourself to be haunted, you know, to open yourself up, to be able to you know, the classic image of the Irishman smoking a pipe, you know, as he stands on
Yeah.
the rocky coast. Um, Americans, we get so stuck in our efficiency and productivity, but it's like to
Yeah.
step outside and to smoke the pipe. There's this contemplative look. To spend time having a pint with friends.
I've got my
There's a great.
Boswells here.
Uh,
One of the
well, wouldn't you know?
I know you've got.
I've got my Peterson's right next to me as well, Mike.
There you
My
go.
pipe. We're showing our pipes for
That's
those who
what's
can't see.
honestly like once I heard Daniel Day-Lewis, would get pipes from Boswell's in Chambersburg
Oh,
or whatever. I'm like, okay, I need one
that's
too because that's.
that's brilliant. But think about that. The culture
Oh my
of
gosh.
we just transitioned beautifully into the pipes. The culture of the
Yes,
pipe, which by the way is coming
I'm a
back.
noob. That's what I'm
Are
hearing.
you?
Yeah,
Oh,
yeah.
it's
I
brilliant.
have to
I
find
have a
a
whole.
I have to find a good plate. Like I want to, as far as good tobacco for it and practices in terms of upkeep and all
All right.
that. So
Well, we're
I'll keep
I'm
up with
gonna
you on that.
loop you into I have a text thread of probably a
Oh, okay.
dozen men or more.
Yeah,
There's exorcist priests, scholars, academics, husbands and fathers. We all smoke
that's
pipes.
a
It's
good
called
group to
Pipe
be
Club.
part of.
I'm gonna
Oh, no
weave you in,
way.
brother. I'm gonna
Oh,
weave you
I
in,
will
brother.
be
And we talk about
gladly.
good blends, aromatic blends, good pipes, and then we share quotes from
Yeah.
Chesterton or Tolkien or Lewis. So I'll get you in that today.
I'm
But yeah,
I'm
it's
feeling like Wayne's World, like we're not worthy. Well, actually, there's a lot of fun Mike. There's a lot of fun Mike Myers Scottish and English stuff too, but that'll I'll save some
that's
of that
true.
maybe till later.
He
What
yeah,
you
he
were
really
saying? I'm
did
sorry.
bring. He brought Scotland to the main with Shrek, right? With that
Oh my
ogre with the
gosh.
Scottish accent. But the pipe, I'm speaking into that now.
Yeah.
It's uh, it's one of those sort of iconic things again. You've got the bagpipes, the pint of Guinness, the harp. You've got these like icons. The
Yeah.
pipe is kind of in there, I think, for Irish Scottish culture.
Hmm.
And to me, my dad's been smoking a pipe since he was 19 years old. He went to Ireland. They went back when he was young, and he came back smoking the pipe. He's been doing it. He's 75 now.
Hmm.
And I just grew up with the smell of Captain Black cherry blend tobacco in the air. My dad, a pipe in his gob. And
Hmm.
I picked it up, I don't know, 12 years ago or something. And I love it. It creates a space for contemplation. It's one of those things where
Yeah.
it makes me pause. There's a ritual to packing a pipe and picking a blend and
Yeah.
smoking the pipe. And it brings, I do know a couple women who smoke a pipe, but it's unusual. It's mostly a man thing, but it
Hmm.
brings men together into a space where we will share what we love. We'll share music, we'll share books we're reading or good quotes from thinkers. Um,
Yeah.
that's what the Pipe Club is kind of about. We do that even just through a text thread, but sometimes we'll connect. And
And I just
again,
you can't help but
one of
have
those.
like the picture of
Mm,
Bilbo on the bench out front, or like
yeah,
especially
yeah,
like in the Lord of the Rings movie. I really love that shot when Gandalf first sees Bilbo off, and then he's sitting there before Frodo gets back, and he's just sitting by the fire, and he's
yes,
so like just like for this, he's like, what do
yeah.
we have
He's
here? Like, what is
he's
gonna,
thinking.
he's that's like the longest kind of pondering, like before any of
Hmm.
it starts to get nuts, that just,
That's true.
and then I love those moments in those movies, the visual of that.
Tolkien himself, in writing the Lord of the Rings, I mean, he was Tolkien. There's a famous quote of his saying, "Ah, another day, 24 hours to smoke my pipe." He loved it. He said, I smoke it to the point of it's like almost absurd. He said, like I can't write and not
Oh my
smoke.
gosh.
So that it's just funny that that was part of his own life and experience. He just loved it. Tolkien loved the blend called Capstan, and C.S. Lewis loved Three Nuns was the tobacco blend that C.S. Lewis loved. So it's just kind of fun thinking about these men, Irish and English, right? Lewis being, as we were
Mm-hmm.
saying off, like from Belfast, Ireland.
Mm-hmm.
Tolkien, born in South Africa but raised in England, in the pub every week, smoking their pipes, drinking pints, and reading their stories to each other.
Yeah.
Talk about that the culture we're talking about right now, like it's story and it's leisure, but leisure, not laziness, right? Leisure that's a
Right.
creative, contemplative posture, not lazy.
It's
Leisure is
it's
not
a
lazy.
Sabbath, right? Like a
Yes.
Sabbath orientation kind of,
Hmm.
real quick side note, just because I just heard this in an audiobook the other day. Um, it might have been part of like I can't remember if it was within the Weight of Glory or not, but it was Walter Hooper
Mm.
reflecting on his the last few months of Lewis's life, and he said that I hadn't heard this before, and I'm sure you've heard this, but that they found, like, with all the medical care like he was kind of getting at the end, some of his nurses were just appalled because the patch, or like the pocket on his jacket, had been patched so many times from him getting lazy with his pipe or just bored of it and putting it in his pocket still lit. And they were like, they couldn't believe that he hadn't burned himself to, or burned the house down.
Oh, that
So,
is funny.
so of course,
Wow.
like with pipe safety, of course, we want to advocate.
Yes,
But
yes. Disclaimer. Put that in the show
by the
notes.
fun joke for you, quick, I just remembered, and you can customize it, of course, and change the place names. But the version I heard is, you got the two guys at the bar, and one overhears the accent of the other. I'm not going to try the accent, but he just, they start talking, and they're just really hitting it off and everything. He's like, where are you from? And he's like, oh, I'm from Killarney. He's like, no, I'm from Killarney. And they're back and forth, and which parish did you go? Oh, St. Mary's, the cathedral. He's like, oh yeah, yeah. And this goes on and on. You can do this joke forever, but I love, the punchline is the bartender's shaking his head, and another guy says, "What's up?" He goes, "Oh, the Murphy twins are drunk again."
Oh gosh.
you know,
Oh no.
you know. But
Sad.
again, but like there's that sentimentality even behind something like that too, like this wanting to connect, and
Yes.
and I want to get back a little bit too before we jump to some other stuff here. Because I want to talk about landscape with you too for a minute. I have some
Yeah.
stuff I want to say about Scotland, but with the music, I just have to laugh too, because you see, and I don't know if it maybe in your experience, like we're not necessarily in this venue wanting to get into all, of course, the downsides, or like the sort of infighting and everything like that. That's for a different
Yeah.
day, and
Oh
those
yeah.
things come in
Yeah.
because of human nature, because of sin.
Yes.
But
Yes, indeed.
I more on the bright side of it, I don't know, I didn't ask you this ahead of time, but that kind of, that Irish and Scottish kind of, heritage in your background,
Hmm.
anything particularly fun about, like, was there any, fun jousting about any of that? One thing I've seen a lot is the Scots love to, seemingly jump on this whenever there's a famous song or something. They're like, "Oh, we had it first," and it's
Oh.
like, so there's all this, like, because like everybody, like Ireland, they all love the Parting Glass, but it's like, well, that was the song in Scotland till Burns's Auld Lang Syne took its place. Like, okay, but there is, like,
That's
I
so
saw some of
funny.
that impulse too. There's like this real urge to be like that the Scots especially seem to have to,
That's funny.
I
I
think they
don't
claim Amazing
recall.
Grace too.
That's right, they do. Well, because you often hear it on the Highland pipes, right? The Scottish
Yeah,
bagpipes.
indeed.
Wild Mountain Thyme is one of my favorite, all-time favorite songs. I mean, our
Mm,
kids sing it. We all, I love to sing it. So many of these songs I sang to my children when they were babies. When I would be rocking them to sleep, I would be singing these old
mm,
songs. I didn't. I don't remember any animosity growing up with the Scotch Irish, and I think it was because of that marriage of my grandmother and grandfather. There was just peace, so
mm,
it was just kind of almost the Scotch Irish kind of morphed. It was kind of it
mm.
was similar because my grandmother's family, I believe, came from Ireland, but then
Right.
she grew up in Scotland. But yeah, I it's so funny how it gets in you, and some of the songs, they can be so silly, and we kind of hinted
Yeah.
at it before, but they could be so kind of silly and so mundane. And even just like it's almost like scat. It's like, you've got your American scat, like the Louis Armstrong stuff. But the Irish and
Mm.
Scotch kind of had the scat. Like you've got these sounding
Yeah.
ridiculous songs that don't make sense, but they're
Yeah.
just so fun and they're so disarming, right?
Yeah.
Mike, I
Well, and some of
texted
them,
you
especially
something.
if,
Oh,
oh, sure, sure. Well, can
I
I
was
just
going to
before
say,
we get to,
I feel like, yeah, before we transition to another topic or something, I
yeah,
wanted to say that I want to read, if you don't mind,
yes,
because I feel
please
like we're in
do.
the zone right now. I texted you
Yeah.
this piece of poetry, unknown author, about the Irish. Can I read it?
Yeah. Please do. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, okay, great. Because I do feel like when I first stumbled on this years ago, and I read this. It's called "What Shall I Say About the Irish." I felt like I was reading the biography of my dad, or my cousins or something. Like, okay, so what shall I say about the Irish? The utterly impractical, never predictable, sometimes irascible, quite inexplicable Irish. Strange blend of shyness, pride, and conceit, and stubborn refusal to bow in defeat. He's spoiling and ready to argue and fight, yet the smile of a child fills his soul with delight. His eyes are the quickest to well up with tears. We talked about that. Yet his strength is the strongest to banish your fears. All right, let's look at Braveheart for a second there, though he's a Scotsman. His hate is as fierce as his devotion is grand, and there's no middle ground on which he will stand. He's wild and he's gentle, he's good and he's bad, he's proud and he's humble, he's happy and sad. And I love this. He's in love with the ocean, the earth, and the skies. He's enamored with beauty wherever it lies. He's victor and victim, a star and a clod, but mostly he's Irish, in love with his God. Oh, man.
Oh,
so good.
I love it.
So good. There's so many pieces that stir me.
And I, this makes me think of, we talked about the monks a little bit earlier, just mentioned in passing, you think of places like, Skellig Michael, right? I mentioned we were texting just things back and forth. What about this? What about that? Which of course, I think most folks these days, in the last couple of years would have seen it at least, or seen references to it in, specifically Star Wars Last Jedi. And then again in The Rise of Skywalker briefly. Well, at the end of Force Awakens also. So you have this, this island, and it's just, an island is pretty, an island can be very, very tiny, right? Or very, very big. But these islands, I guess, I was looking it up. I think Skellig comes from a Gaelic term. Or would it be Gaelic, or I guess I sometimes get my stuff mixed Gaelic up here, because Celtic's more broad. A Scotch Gaelic, for basically like rocky kind of outcropping.
Yeah, it's sharp, not like precipice stone. Yeah.
But this like, who but a Catholic monk would stand on the coast of Ireland and look out and be like, that's where we're gonna go. And
who's crazy enough but the Irish to do that?
To me, like, what I immediately think of is John the Baptist, or the Essenes, or like, Jesus in his 40 days in the wilderness. This idea that, and you see it in the, I think it's definitely like a at that point several centuries after the sort of desert monk kind of period, but this impulse, right? It's not an arid climate, but it's just as or inhospitable, or just as unlikely that you're going to survive there as you will in the Jordan Desert. So maybe speak to that just a little bit, as far as but the beauty, the beauty doesn't see what I had down here. Sorry, I think this is how I'm setting it up. Aquinas, unless I'm mistaken, Aquinas has that quote. I couldn't find it word for word, but basically the idea that one definition of beauty, right? Beauty that upon which being seen or perceived basically delights, right?
Yes.
But I think within that, I don't think it's just as simple as saying it makes you feel good or happy, or it's not a superficial thing. So maybe, with your podcast, especially, you guys have been doing The Way of Wonder. I've got the link down there for everybody.
Oh, thank you.
This is, I know this, oh, my pleasure. This is something you've been continually going deeper into, this idea of beauty, the theological connections with it. Maybe speak to that a little bit, as far as a place like Skellig Michael, or this inhospitable place that's somehow beautiful, though.
Yeah, this is a great, I love the way you're framing it, Mike, the question. And I've thought about this quite a bit, and I could, go into my own experiences where again, phenomenology, the science of experience, and what we've learned. I think there's a stripping away of things that happens when we're in the face of such austere beauty, such radical, even just the verticality and the precariousness of Skellig Michael. It just sobers you up quickly, like, oh my gosh, wow, look at that. Michelangelo, not Irish, Michelangelo, the Italian sculptor,
a strong Irish name.
Said, oh, Michelangelo, he once said, and this is awesome. Michelangelo said, beauty is the purgation of superfluity. Beauty is the purgation of superfluity. So a stripping away. Okay, here's the Irish Sea or the North Sea, washing, smashing, cleansing, stripping away. Giant's Causeway, the Cliffs of Moher, Slieve League up in the northwest Donegal of Ireland. These haunting places that have been purified So beauty is the
Yeah.
purgation of superfluity, the superfluous. Like you things drop off, things get peeled off, and that's good. We want to be naked before God, and this climate, things like Skellig Michael, this environment assists in peeling away these layers. When Rebecca and I got married, we had the chance within the first year or two of our marriage to go and visit her cousins. I mentioned earlier we saw
Okay.
her cousins in Cork, County Cork, and Killarney, and it was such an amazing trip. And I've got distant relations up in Donegal, but we didn't get to see any
Yeah.
of those distant cousins. But we rented a car and we went up all the way up the north. I mean the west of Ireland. You know, we went all the way up to Donegal, to Slieve League,
Hmm.
and these are the highest sea cliffs in Europe. The
Hmm.
northwest corner of Ireland, Donegal, Slieve League, the highest sea cliffs in Europe, and we kind of approached it from a different angle. We were hiking through fields, you know, dotted with sheep, and there were little streams running by, and it was awesome. And I think I had my
Hmm.
tin whistle with me, so we would like lay in the grass for a bit, and I would like, you know, do a little haunting tin whistle. And then we kept going, and at one point we crested this top of a hill. Boom! There were the cliffs.
Wow.
It dropped 700 feet.
I'm looking at
There
them
were
now. Yeah.
there were no
Wow.
fences. There were no signs, fences. There was no like souvenir shops or ice cream bars. It was just boom, the Atlantic
Yeah.
Ocean and a 700-foot drop. And we were
Hmm.
just like, oh my goodness. Uh, I think here, as an American, you know, growing up in America, we sort of franchise everything. You know, you can buy a
Yeah.
T-shirt like 10 feet from this kind of austere beauty, and that takes away from it. But the experience of that section of the northwest of Ireland, Slieve League, it's such an experience of again stripping away
Hmm.
and face to face with the God who is beauty, who shaped these things over millennia
Yeah.
with, you know, with love and knowledge that we would someday traverse, you know, that Bill and
Yeah.
Rebecca would one day crest that hill and get rocked by it. Like God just, he loves to wow us like this. And
Yeah.
I'm just so grateful for it.
Well, people watching this will know if I actually did this or not, but now I'm strongly considering changing the, as beautiful as the cover art template is that I have right now, I may change that landscape picture to Sleeve League, something from Sleeve League before I post
Go
it.
for it. Do it.
We'll
Do
see.
it.
Oh my gosh. But that's, and it's so beautiful. Like the that stripping away of superfluity,
Hmm.
it's, I think of the masks too that we, I mean, we talk about this a lot in sort of the
Oh
interpersonal
yeah.
aspect of it, right? The masks that
Yeah.
we all wear. I have, and
Mm.
it's and oh man, all of this is part of why it's so haunting, right? Because it's all connected. There's this um
Yes.
palpable, I would call it like a palpable sacramentality to this.
Great phrase.
And I didn't share
Great
this
phrase.
with you before, shifting gears a little bit to Scotland, just in my experience, because full confession to any of our viewers or listeners, I must confess, those of you who might be in Ireland listening to this, I have not been to the Emerald Isle myself yet. I've flown over it a couple times, but it
Not
is
yet.
on the
We'll
visit
get
list for sure.
there.
But with
Yeah.
Scotland, we were in, when I went with my parents and my brothers, as sort of this way to kind of reconnect with where my dad had been back in the 70s and early 80s. We went in 2004, so I was right. I was 20. We flew over, which now I'm laughing. I just turned 39, and I'm like, now that's half a life ago. It does go quick, doesn't it?
Yes, it
so,
does. Yes.
but we went over, and it was so cool. We stayed in Anstruther, right on the North Sea, and it was beautiful because we just got this. It had just been renovated. It was this beautiful like apartment over top of this
Mm.
little like restaurant, and just we
Mm.
had this loft kind of apartment there for, we were there for a week or so, and that was our home base. And we would basically, I think we flew into Glasgow. We drove basically up to Anstruther, and then we visited all over the place, and we reached basically the northern portion of our trip. Was we went through Inverness and Loch Ness and everything, and it was,
Mm.
that was just so, we drove past Jimmy Page's castle, um,
Oh my
like,
gosh.
but it was just it was such a wonderful trip for so many reasons. But what I've, especially once we hit the Highlands, um,
Mm.
and I've told people this. It was years later that I went to Jerusalem as part of a Holy Land trip, and I said, I've been a lot of places. I've been very blessed. I've been to 46 of the 50 U.S. states. I've been to four continents now. I have a plan to get the remaining ones, because
Wow.
I mean, you have to try, right?
Uh,
But
yeah.
so I've been blessed to go a lot of places and meet a lot of people, a lot of different landscapes and different things. And I said, I
Mhm.
don't know what it is, but the two places that I've ever been in my life that felt the way that felt this way was basically the Highlands of Scotland and Jerusalem. I've never felt the way I felt at those two places. And
Interesting.
to me, that
Yeah.
to have that data set is interesting because it's like there's
Yeah.
nothing similar about 21st century Jerusalem, which if you just look, if you only look superficially, it's
Yeah.
kind of it's just like a lot of Middle Eastern kind of towns in a lot of ways.
Hmm.
Nothing against it, but it's there's nothing particularly wow about it. We're even when we were leaving Jerusalem on the bus, there's like a kid standing outside like peeing just openly like on the side of the road and stuff. Like it's a
That's
very just like there were things like okay, it's not a lot
not
of
the most romantic
mystique.
image of it. Yeah.
But that's what
Yeah.
really got me thinking about it after I'd visited Jerusalem. Was I was reflecting on this and I just thought it has to be spiritual. I mean,
Yeah.
God made the whole universe. It's not like
Yeah.
he's not bound to a
Mhm.
particular location, of course. But we know, I think, as Catholics, sometimes our Protestant brothers and sisters will maybe criticize Eucharistic theology, or I see it at our school when we have adoration, and I'm always trying to point out to everybody, especially if they're not familiar with it, if they're coming from a different tradition, is like, we believe this place is different.
Right.
There's something, I mean, God is everywhere, yes, but there's something
Yeah.
different about here. And I
Yeah.
absolutely think there's something to that. I think there is a
Yes.
there is a particular unique blessing. Not that Ireland, Scotland, England, not that the British Isles are more
Mm.
blessed than other people, but I wonder if you
Mm.
have any additional thoughts about
Yeah. That's
spiritually
really.
speaking, what he might be. Tell me what God's up to. No,
Yeah. Give me a
no, it's
sec. Let
I
me
just I
tune
feel
in.
like I feel like we're meant to pay attention to that
I
place, those
agree.
places,
I don't know
you know.
why. I do agree with you, Mike. I think following this thread, there's absolutely something to it, and it
And
all
maybe
goes
if we
back
did
to
know
this.
why, we'd stop looking.
Yeah. Well, there's
Maybe.
something about the sacramentality, the incarnational reality of it, that God did localize Himself. That passage from Luke's Gospel. It's just like the angel Gabriel came to a town, da da da, and the virgin's name was Mary. It's so specific. Like, boom, He's landing here.
Mm,
This is the chosen people. Why? Why did He do that? Why did He make Him, who is universal, so particular? And
yes.
then from that particular location, let's say in the Holy Land, radiates out to the universal, to all the earth. So He loves to do that. So
Hmm.
I do think it isn't about playing favorites or our land is better than yours. It's just He's trying to reveal that He who is universal. We can't get lost in either. Like the pendulum can't swing too far either way. God
Right.
loves to keep going back and forth from the particular to the universal. um, it's dangerous to say things like, I love all humanity, but my neighbor drives me
Right.
nuts. No, it's like, no, love the
Right.
particular neighbor who is a microcosm of
Amen.
all humanity. Uh,
Yeah.
C.S. Lewis talks about that point right there. But it's a bit of a mystery. Why does He do it this way? I don't know, but He does. And
Yeah.
follow through. Knock on that door. Walk in and see why. And
Yeah.
you'll be invited into every other place and space
Yeah.
and be drawn back again. I think it's, I think about my own love of these places, what we're talking about, and just these particular things, like a certain poem by Joseph Mary Plunkett, the great Irish poet, a certain
Mm,
song that Liam Clancy sings that I've
right.
been ruminating on for 35 years. Why,
Right.
like, how is it not exhausted of its potency? Um,
Right.
but when I soak in it and marinate in it, in my Irish and Scotch history and stories, um, it rings me out, and then I get to gift it to someone else. And when I teach or share stories, and you as well, right? Whenever you do these things,
Hmm.
other people get enriched, and they love what you
Right.
love, and I love to hear other people share their love of their story and their experience. Um,
Mm-hmm.
This is a funny story, real quick. I was teaching. We got to teach in Madrid, in Spain, this summer. I taught my Way of Beauty course,
Yeah.
and I had a friend I met. He's from Berlin in Germany. His name is Ulf Lepst, which is a very, think of a name like
Yes.
Ulf Lepst. You know, he's awesome. And he was
Yeah.
sharing his experience growing up on the other side of the Iron Curtain.
Mm.
And like he got drawn into like punk music, and uh, his stories were very like different. You know, his experience was very different from mine. But we were
Yeah.
talking about the haunting of our hearts, and I talked about my experiences of Irish Scottish heritage and the music, and I used
Yeah.
that German word Sehnsucht, right? That
Yes.
inconsolable longing that C.S. Lewis would love to talk about. And
Yeah.
my friend Ulf like lights up. He's like Sehnsucht, and it's a German word, right? And
Yeah.
he says, I was listening when I was a teenager. I listened to this punk band, and they had a song called Sehnsucht, and they would just like, it was loud and clangy, and they kept saying this Sehnsucht. And he said it lifted me up. I didn't know why. Like it fed me somehow. And he's like, you're sharing your
That's
experience of a whole
awesome.
other thing. And it's like, you will hate this song, Bill. You will hate it, but you will love it. You know, it's like, wow, it's wonderful.
That is
So,
so funny.
so the
Oh
blending
my
of
gosh.
worlds and experiences, that's what
Yeah.
I think all of this, like again, don't be afraid to localize, to go into your roots and the earth and the heritage, and don't think like it's
Yeah.
going to isolate you. Somehow in God's mystery, his providence, it'll unite.
Yeah.
Again,
Well, and
what the heck is St. Patrick's Day? Why does the entire country go nuts for St. Patrick's Day in Ireland? Like we're
I
so
feel like it's a
cosmopolitan. We're so,
lot harder to be a
mm,
reductionist
mm,
if you've been, if you've spent a large amount of time soaked in that culture. I'm not saying it's impossible. I just feel like,
yeah.
because like you were saying earlier about we were talking about the sea songs and stuff. And what did you say again? What
Yeah.
was you would sing, some of those first songs you sang to your kids? What did you mention? I don't know if you mentioned
Oh
any by name. I
gosh.
forget. There's so
Yeah,
many,
well, I
but
would sing. Yeah, oh gosh, I would sing "Bonnie Water" by the
okay.
Irish Rovers. I would sing
Yes,
"Wild Mountain Time."
that's it. What?
You
Yeah.
know, some of
Okay.
yeah. There's the music about the Silkies, the Seal People. I want to open that up
Yes.
too, which are so haunting, and they
Yeah.
get into my kids, you know, and it
Yeah.
stirs the longing. I think it's all again a reminder that we're moving through this transient world, and these are
Right.
some of the threads. You know, these are the ladders that we can sort of climb through
Yeah.
great song and music and story that we can kind of take us up.
Well, and real quick, because I want to get to the Silkies here, because you
Yeah,
got another maybe 10 minutes,
yeah,
maybe
yeah.
is that
Sure,
is that
sure.
good? Because I'll get but just one quick thing before that. The first song I ever sang to Noelle, our eldest daughter, was
Yeah.
so she was born in 2016, and I was really on this. I still am, I guess,
Mm.
but I was really on this. That Rogues Gallery album that came out that was like a
Oh,
compilation of different sea shanties and pirate ballads and stuff. I'll put the link maybe below because it's a great album. Uh,
please, yeah,
some
send
of
it.
the songs on there are there's one or two songs that are a little inappropriate. Um, even though they're 250 years old, sometimes I need to remind people like, yeah, no, some people wrote
Yeah,
inappropriate
original
stuff
sin
back
goes
then
way
too.
back.
Right.
Right.
But and they some of these guys are pirates. But anyway, there's a song on there's called "A Dying Sailor to His Shipmates." That's like it's like a dirge. I mean, it's like this the
Mm.
song of the dead sailor. If he could
Oh,
sing it, kind of thing, as he's being buried at sea. And the track on that album, it's sung by Bono. Um, so
wow.
but it's a very I'll send you a link to it. Very kind of
Yeah,
there's like a
sure.
beautiful like orchestral kind of or not orchestral, but yeah, it's like
Mm.
acoustic, and it's just really really beautiful. Um, and I looked it up. There's not a whole easy to find kind of track record for kind of where that song comes from, but it seems like from what I've seen, it's an early. It might be New World, but of course, with we could do a whole other thing just on this sort of Irish and Scottish largely roots of like a lot of American folk music and even
Yes,
some country music, that kind of
it's
stuff.
huge.
But
Yes.
this song, it's just so funny that I'm singing that to my daughter, and I'm laughing. It's like it's this whaling, like a sailor on a whaling ship from like 1820 kind of song, and he's dead. And I'm singing this
Yeah,
like singing this to my newborn daughter, but it's like so I
it's
believe that it's that actually that act itself I think planted seeds of this haunting in her that she won't even know
that's so
until
funny.
years
Yeah.
later. But
Well,
yeah, anyway,
it's
so
back to the mortality. No, Mike, it's back to the
Mm-hmm.
mortality. Like the Irish,
Yeah.
they're not afraid to face it. There's a song that I would sing called "The Wind That Shakes the Corn," and one of the lines is, this young Irishman he loves this girl, and but he's called to fight for Ireland's freedom, and so he gives her a last embrace, and then uh, a bullet comes out of the shrubs, and a bullet pierced my true love's side, a rose pierced by a thorn, and in my arms in blood she died, while wind was shaking the corn. And I'm just singing this
Yeah.
to my children as they're falling asleep. They're little toddlers, and I'm like, well, that was kind of dark, but
Oh my God.
at
Well,
the same time, sobering.
there's I'm trying to find it here. The song, I think it's set to a poem, I want to say. The Highwayman poem?
Oh yeah, yeah, yeah. There's a couple songs about the
Was that
highwayman. Yeah,
Alfred Noyes? Noyes?
yeah.
That
He was
there's a
captured.
song. Yeah,
Hmm.
Lorena McKennett, who I love. Now she's
Oh,
Canadian, I believe, but I
whoa.
think she's of Irish
Yeah,
and Scottish extraction,
French
and
Irish
so
descent.
much of
Yes.
her songs are like
Oh,
that's like I constantly have that going too. But
but
she
yeah,
did a whole. It's like
put
10
that in
minutes
for your
long.
listeners. Put that in for your
Yeah,
listeners. Yeah, she takes her time. Lady of Shalott
yeah,
is a killer. There's a
yeah,
few. Right, very haunting.
yeah. But
And
I
again,
keep the we want to get to we wanted to get to this. Was it the Silkies, right?
oh yeah, the Silkies. I know because
Yeah, I didn't want to forget
just
them.
the music. Um,
Yeah,
there's the Silkies. If your listeners aren't familiar with it, so there's this sort of uh, legends of the Seal people of the west coast of Ireland. So, um, if a young seal comes to the shore, is washed ashore, uh, and are stranded, they will take on human form. And so, like the seal maidens are these seals who've come and gotten kind of washed up and
yeah.
stranded. They take on human form, and they can never return. If they return to the sea, they'll lose their humanity forever. But they can
Hmm.
kind of blend in, and so there's these stories of, along the west coast of Ireland about the Silkies, and if you've got a lilting high voice and dark eyes, and you're always, you see the girl standing by the sea, it's like, oh, she's a Silky. I think
That's
about
my
my wife.
my County Mayo
Oh,
ancestors. I think were
oh,
very
nice. Well,
aware of. Yeah.
my wife, she's got dark hair. She's got blue eyes, but she's got a high lilting voice, and she sings. And
Hmm.
I tell the kids like, "Mommy's a Silky." You know. So here's a song. This is the Song of the Seal by Karen Casey. Again, Karen Casey is just one of these beautiful voices. She was part of the band Solas, Solas.
Hmm.
But this is she did a whole album on the stories of the Silkies, and so there's narrated song pieces, and then she has a song come in. So let me just read part of this. A sea maid. This is the song. The song is so beautiful.
Yeah.
You got to listen to it.
What's the
Song of
title
the
again?
Seal.
Song of
The Song
the
of the
Seal. Okay.
Seal by Karen Casey, and it's a
Casey.
whole
Yeah.
album with stories and songs about the Silky people. She sings,
Yeah.
"A sea maid sings on yonder reef. The spellbound seals gnaw near. A lilt that glows beyond belief. Mortals enchanted here. The wandering plowman halts his plow. The maid her milking stays. Sheep on hillside, bird on bough, pause and listen in amaze. Was it a dream? We're all asleep. The seals with a splash dive into the deep. The world goes on, yet lingers the refrain." And then she goes into a Gaelic sort of
Hmm.
verse that's, I don't even know what it translates as, but it's
Yeah.
this idea of something heavenly and divine just broke in. And they
Yeah.
say the Silkies, the Silkies inside, if you press your ear to the chest of a Silky, a seal maiden, you can hear the ocean waves. And
Wow.
it's this idea of like
That's
the eternal mystery of the sea and then the humanity on the land, and these two
yeah.
worlds coming together. I mean, I'm getting chills right now thinking about it because that
Yeah.
defines our humanity, body, and soul. The breath of God is
Yeah.
in us. It's an amazing thing.
Yeah. Well, and there's so much of this in the writings of like back to Lewis and Tolkien again, but Tolkien especially that just that enchantment. It was a word I wrote down because
Yes.
I think the etymology of enchantment is the idea of being inside the song, you know,
Yes. In the
which
music.
then makes me think of the Einolindale and the you know this
Hmm.
idea of God creates through the word. But I mean, the
Yeah.
language in Scripture is speaking, but I think sometimes we reduce that to just
Yeah.
something less than song. And I think, you know,
Mm.
that idea of Christ being the voice, you know, and then singing, you know, this singing
Wow.
of creation, this eternal song. And, you know, you dance to songs. So there's Lewis, you know, right, the great
Yeah.
dance, like all of this. Just when
Yes.
you read
Yes.
that, you know it's true. And I think Viggo Mortensen said that
Mm.
when they interviewed him when they were making the Lord of the Rings movies, right? You know,
Yeah.
why do people love these stories so much? And he just said, because they're true. And I'm like,
Oh
he's
my
got it.
gosh, I never heard that
I
one.
was like,
I never heard that one.
he's got it. He understands, you know, that's, yeah.
Oh,
You
Peter
know, well,
Crave.
it factually didn't. It's like,
Yeah, Peter Crave.
yeah.
Dr. Peter Crave talks about this idea that in the beginning there was music, and then as we kind of progress or evolve or devolve in our sin,
A regret, yeah.
the music descends into poetry, the poetry into prose, and the
Yes.
prose is just like common chat, and now we just text,
Right. Right.
LOL, you know. But in the beginning was music. In
Yeah.
the beginning was music.
Oh my. Bill, I think just for time, we're gonna have to maybe we can make this a part one,
Yeah,
possibly,
let's do it.
and pick up, yeah, because I
Yeah.
think, you know, and I, like I said, I want to definitely direct people, you know, your way, the way of beauty, or the way of wonder, right? Is that
Yeah,
I
the
don't have it in
YouTube
front of me.
channel at TOB Institute's
Yeah,
YouTube page, we have The Way of Wonder now. Up to 16
the way of
episodes or
wonder.
so have been released. I
Nice.
would love that. Yeah, Mike, I think that
Yeah.
a part one is a good idea because I feel like we've tapped into a vein of music, and we could do a whole part two on what are even like a Lectio Divina kind of thing over some of the lyrics of songs. I just kind of read a little
Oh,
Karen Casey
beautiful.
there, but man, that was haunting. We didn't even open
Yeah.
up the another man from Belfast, Ireland, Van Morrison, whose music,
Yeah.
whose Irish soul, he's got a
He
bunch
was
of
on my
things.
list.
Oh, I mean,
Yep.
One Irish Rover is one of his songs. On Hindford Street, where he recollects growing up in Ireland and what that felt like. That
Yeah.
could be our part two, just like riffing off of some of these beautifully
Well, and
poetic
that's
pieces.
some of the lyrics of that song I was talking about that I sang to Noel. I love it. He gives the image of, you know, he's going to sleep this pleasant sleep while storms above their vigils keep, you
Oh,
know, and
wow.
it's just, then he's this line I love. My captain brave shall read for me the service of the silent dead, and ye shall lower me in the waves when all the prayers are said, and I will find my long, long home among the billows and the foam. Farewell, my friends, for many a league we've sailed together on the deep. Come, let us shake our hands. I'll sail no more, but shipmates wherefore weep. You know, and then the last line is, I'm bound above, my course is run, I near the port, my voyage is done. And I'm like,
Oh,
that's all I want. Like, I don't want to go to work. I just want to say, it's like, just sit with the
just sing
pipe
that
and
song.
listen to that, you know?
Yes,
So,
and you'd be richer for it.
oh my
You'd
gosh.
be richer,
Yeah.
richer for it. Well, thanks,
Well,
Mike.
Bill,
This was awesome.
Bill, thank you. No, absolutely. Yeah, definitely part two. Well, yeah, we'll flesh out this music thing more. Absolutely.
Awesome. Thanks
Hey,
for having
God
me on.
bless. And a part two is going to happen for sure, because every aspect of these things we talked about needs to be explored more, even just an episode on the pipes. So this will probably be a recurring series the more I think about it. A recurring series on beauty, and in a particular way, this kind of mysterious, haunting beauty of the Emerald Isle and of Bonnie, Scotland in particular. So thank you so much for stopping by here, The Gracious Guest Show. Again, please subscribe, share this far and wide. If you haven't clicked that thumbs up, what have you been doing this whole time? It just takes a second to do that. So to my viewers on YouTube, God bless you all. To my listeners on the podcast, we can't do this without you, and thank you so much for stopping by. God bless you, and until next time, don't forget to wonder. Take care.